Hi everyone and welcome to class today. Today we're going back to Hanumanasana, our favorite pose. Not only because it looks very cool, very beautiful, but it's also and mainly because of the huge benefits that it gives us. That is a thorough stretch in the lower body. I think Hanumanasana is kind of the yoga pose that stretches you out the most in the most important muscle group in our lower body. That is the hamstring glute and the hip flexor group in the front of your hip. So it's very thorough and very needed too, because our legs tend to be tight due to our daily activity. So first of all, before we move, I'm going to demystify a very common thought of people who do yoga about the split. And I thought so too. So when I started doing yoga, I thought that once people can split, they can do that, they will be able to do that anytime, immediately. I thought if I can stretch myself out and make a 180 degree, then it will be permanent. I can always do that. Next time I want to do the split, I will just split. But that's not true. And because of this thought that I think, oh, I have to work hard to only one result and then it will be always mine. I was very impatient and I always ask the yoga teacher like, how many years or how long do you stretch so that you can split? And or I asked like, why can't I straighten my knee? Because I thought if I can manage to straighten my knee, it will be my result forever. But it's not, because your muscles will be elastic, like an elastic band. So think of when you pull an elastic band out, when you release your hand, you don't pull anymore. It comes back to its original size. If an elastic band that when you pull it, it never comes back again, then that elastic band has a really serious problem. So people who always split, like they don't have any difficulty in splitting, either they are very loose in their joints, very long in their muscles, could be naturally born like that, or more serious, they could have lost the elasticity in their muscles, and that's a dangerous situation. We don't want to get there. So after you split, maybe you spend 1 or 2 hours in a yoga class and eventually you manage to do it. But then you get out of the yoga class, you start walking around and start working in these muscles groups again. And they become shorter and shorter again. Especially if you train other sports like running, going to the gym, weightlifting, group exercise and such, bicycling. These muscles will work and they will contract. They will become shorter every time you do those activities. I have known many people who quit the gym so that they will become more flexible more quickly. But well, think about the shape. I think we do the pose for the sake of the benefits and not for the shape. So if you really like the shape, you can spend a few days stretching yourself out and out, of course gently and patiently. Maybe you get the shape, but then once you quit practicing to get back to the split, like that shape, you need time to warm up your muscles and stretch them out patiently again. So that's about splitting. Enjoy all the moments that you feel like it's pain. Of course it's not pain, it's just a stretch feeling. And one more thing I would like to notice you is that we want to stretch out the thickest parts of your muscles, because think of the elastic band. You want to stretch the thickest part. If you only focus on stretching the thin, the small part, that part may eventually break and the thick part is still tight. So you can imagine about it like that. So for today, let's go through all the poses that we have been doing to stretch your hamstring and the front of your hip. Let's prepare with you a wall and some pillows so that you support your knee, a strap, 2 blocks. If you have more than 2 blocks, prepare about 4 blocks, because we're going to do the what is called oversplit. Oh, it sounds scary, right? But we just want to try to see how it feels when people get into oversplit. For those who don't know what is oversplit, is when people bring their legs more than 180 degrees and they will split with blocks underneath their feet. And you know my approach, I will never push you into that shape. We're going to experiment on our body how it feels when we do half split with your heel on the blocks. So when you're ready, let's sit down to the floor. Close your eyes. One more thing is that I have been training my legs very much these days, so I'm very tight in my legs. And I'm into the idea of stretching and then strengthening and then stretching again. So it's super hard for me. I think I have been split 180 degrees like once or like twice. But it's fine, because what a shape for? Take a picture and then you can take one picture and post it again and again on the internet. Yeah, so I'm very tired today, all over my legs. So I think this stretch today will be awesome for me. And I hope you feel the same. Let's sit down on the floor, close your eyes, leave your hands on your thighs. And start bringing your body into relaxing mode, which we need when we stretch. When you relax, your muscles become loose. And your body will adapt to the position you will be in. So first of all, slow down with how you're breathing. Inhale with very soft and long breath. And exhale with long exhale. And as you exhale, relax the muscles that often have tension on your body, like your face, your neck, your shoulders. Relax these parts, especially between your eyes and inside your eyes. Every time you exhale, try to find more relaxation in these areas. And I highly recommend later in stretch, you can close your eyes so that you really go deep inside your own body and listen to the stretch feeling. In the Yoga Sutra, there's a very few sutra mentioning yoga poses. But the first one is literally translated. An asana should be stable and comfortable. But how can such a hard pose be stable and comfortable? Well, don't push yourself. Just find a position where you can still relax. You can still find stability and comfort. Keep breathing slowly. Long breath. Two more breaths. calm down, relax, and ready to receive. Going to receive very good blood circulation into the parts that you're going to stretch. And knowing so, let's slowly open your eyes. Take a deep inhale as you bring your arms over your head, and then exhale, hands down to the floor. Let's move into a table pose and bring a pillow or a blanket underneath your knees so that we can go to Hanumanasana pose and do the moon salutation. Put your knees on the pillow, hands down to the floor. Inhale, cow pose, bring your belly low, raise your chest up high. Exhale, cat pose, round yourself. Inhale, cow pose. By doing this, you are already stretching very gently in your glute muscles and your hamstring. And exhale, round yourself. For one more time like that, inhale, cow pose. And exhale, cat pose. Inhale, cow pose. Then bring your right leg up as you inhale. Exhale, step your right foot forward to your right hand. Raise yourself up as you inhale. Don't make the stretch in the back leg yet. Push your hand into your knee. Push your belly back around yourself like cat pose. And now feel the stretch happening in the front of your left thigh. Inhale and exhale. Move your hip forward as you bring your belly and your chest back round yourself. Take a few breaths here. And the more you bring your hip forward, the more you push your belly back, the more you feel that stretch in the front of your left thigh. And then let's move your front foot forward, sink your hip low, closing your left hip in. As you inhale, bring your arms over your head in Hanumanasana. For 3 more breaths here. Whenever you inhale, lift your chest up, and exhale, move your hip down toward the floor and forward. If you feel like your knee is being over your ankle, you can step your front foot forward so that your knee will be right on the top of your ankle, and always closing your left hip in. So you feel the stretch happening right in front of your left hip. For one more time, inhale and exhale, maybe bring your hips a bit lower, and then slowly release your hand, bring your hands down to the floor. Bring your foot a bit back, find your blocks with you. Let's hold the high side, or maybe you have been used to it, lower side of the blocks. Tuck your back toes, lift your hips up into pyramid pose. So in pyramid, let's lift your heels up for today and make your hips straight forward in a square position. You're going to bend your front knee very lightly, so slight that your legs still look quite straight, and turn your front knee out. Pulling your right hip back. And stay here in pyramid pose. So when you inhale, cow pose. And then exhale, cat pose. Round yourself. Think of how you want to kiss your shin bone. Inhale. And exhale. One more time, inhale. Lift your chest up, tilt your tailbone up. And exhale, forward bend. Belly to your thigh, face down toward your shin bone. If you feel like you don't touch your thigh at all, your face is so far away from your leg, that's fine. Just stay where you are and enjoy the stretch as you are there. Inhale, lift your chest up. And exhale, let's move the blocks to the side. Bring your front foot back into table pose again. Knees down to the floor. Inhale to cow pose. Exhale to cat pose. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow for one more time. And exhale, cat. Next time you stay in cow pose, you're going to bring your left leg up as you inhale. And exhale, step your left foot forward to your left hand position. At first, without any stretch, bring your arms over your head. And always closing your right hip in, so don't turn yourself to the right side. Bring your hand down to your knee and push through your legs so that your body will be rounded. Bring your hip forward. Squeeze your belly back. Bring your chest back. And start feeling that stretch happening in the front of your right thigh. So inhale and exhale. Think of how you move your tailbone forward as you push your belly button back. Maybe straightening your arm, pushing into your thigh. Stay Stay here and feel that stretch happening. If you remember what happened to the other side, recall and compare your two sides. So to me, my right side doesn't feel so much as my left in this position. And then let's slowly get out of the pose. Step your front foot forward a little bit and start sinking your hip low. Always closing your right hip in. Remember that, into Anjani Asana pose. So this is like a baby Hanumanasana. And bring your arms over your head. Inhale, lift your chest up. And exhale, bring your hip lower and forward for more stretch in the front of your right thigh. And notice your back knee, it should be the kneecap, the top of your thigh bone on the floor, and not the inside of your knee on the floor. If you need more space because your knee is over your ankle, step your front foot forward so that your knee will be right on the top of your ankle. Inhale, chest up, and exhale, a little bit of back bend, lifting your chest, sinking your hip low, and feel all the front of your body being stretched in this pose. I love this pose. It's so awesome. Think of all the time you sit all day. The muscles in front of your hip get shorter, and now you're stretching it out. So let's slowly get out of the pose. Bring your hip back. Step your foot slightly back. Find the blocks with you. Put the blocks on the same level as your foot. Tuck your back toes and lift your hip up. Slowly straighten your front knee, but still bend it slightly and turn it out. Press the root of your big toe down to the floor. Let's inhale, raise your chest up into a cow pose. Always pulling your left hip back. And exhale, forward bend. Think of how you want to kiss your shin bone here. 2 more times, inhale. And exhale. Go a bit lower, even if you cannot kiss your shin bone at all. Try to be a bit lower than the previous time. And then inhale, halfway up. Exhale, forward bend. Stay here for a few breaths and start identify where the stretch is happening. And then let's slowly get out of the pose. Move the blocks to the side. Step your front foot back into table pose. Knees down to the floor. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Next time you do cow pose, inhale. Tuck your toes and lift your hips up high. Kind of maintain the cow pose into downward facing dog. Walk your heels on and off the floor in down dog. And then think of tilting your tailbone and your sitting bone up. It's like you want to do a back bend in your lower spine. Keep your hips right here. Keep pushing your hip up like this. But start reaching your heels down toward the floor. So that's how you put your heels on the floor. That's when your hamstring is long enough for you to put your heels on the floor with your spine in neutral position. So as you do that, maybe you find a stretch in the calf muscles too. They're very tight. If you can put your heels on the floor already, you can think of bringing your toes up from the floor, heels on the floor, toes off the floor. Ooh, this is stretchy in the calf. Stay here for a few breaths and enjoy this. I feel so much today. Probably also because we rarely stretch the calf out. And then let's inhale, plank. Exhale, knees down and lay down to the floor. If you have a pillow or blanket under you, that's fine. Let's just do a cobra pose. Inhale. Try to be a bit taller than normally you do. Think of bringing your chest forward and bring your shoulders back. Take a deep inhale and feel the big stretch in the front of your body. And exhale, tuck your toes, round yourself, down dog again. Now we're going to hold the blocks. Bring your hands back a little bit so that you stand with your feet on the floor. Hold the blocks with you. Maybe you can use the high side or the low side. Inhale halfway up and exhale, bring your right leg up. Now let's put your right foot into the wall. Remember this. Stand with your left foot on the floor. Bend your left knee very tiny and open it out and out. Let's walk the block closer and closer and encourage your right foot to be more and more into the wall. Try to close your right hip in. So, it's so hard for today, right? And then see how far you can go when you open your right hip out and reach higher and higher. So there's two ways to do this. If you close your hips, then it will be stretchy. If you can close your hips or you can open your hips. But in the split, in yoga, we tend to keep your hips square because you know in the split, you're putting your upper body weight into your hip on the floor. But now your hip is quite free, it's off the floor. Then let's slowly walk the block back. Ooh, step your right foot forward and into high lunge pose. As you inhale, bring your arms over your head. Exhale, hands holding into your hips. And make sure that your heels, step your foot forward and forward. Make the pose bigger as you can straighten your legs. Hold the blocks again. And then put your front heel forward. Flex your toes up. Inhale halfway up. Exhale, forward bend in this pyramid pose, which is bigger and with only your front heel on the floor. It's still fine if you're bending your front knee. But let's inhale halfway up. And exhale, forward bend, pointing your buttock back. One more time, inhale. And exhale. Ooh. And stay here. So try to turn your toes right up to the sky and your kneecap too. If you see your kneecap turning in, open your leg out a little bit. Then let's bring your back knee down to the floor, half split. This time let's bring one block underneath your heel. If you have multiple blocks, you can put one block underneath your heel. Put your heel here. Okay, and then inhale halfway up. Exhale, forward bend. Two more times like this. On your own breath. If you feel like you're fine, you enjoy this stretch, just stay there. If you don't feel fine at all, keep moving in and out of it until your body slowly lengthens the hamstring and you can stay in this for longer. Then I suggest we stay in this half split pose for a few breaths. Let's say 5 breaths. You can close your eyes and start feeling where you feel the most stretch. So as we all know, the hamstring is connected to the calf and the glute. And maybe sometimes you stretch your hamstring, but the calf and the glute are still tight. Then you should stretch them out too, for the whole flexibility of the back line of your legs. So in here, if you're staying in the pose, try to bring your face more and more toward your ankle. To me now, I feel a huge stretch in my calf and kind of a huge stretch too in my hamstring. They're all related to each other. So to find a thorough flexibility, you should stretch them all out. And by flexing your toes with your face and pushing your heels away from you, you're stretching the calf. Ooh, this is tight. Let's slowly get out of the pose as you inhale. Exhale, let's move the block away. Bend your knee, Anjali Asana again. Walk your blocks back next to your hips. Walk your front foot forward quite a lot and bend your knee more. Sink your hip lower without turning your hip to the left side. Always closing your left hip in. Now you can press your hands through the block. Close your eyes and let your hips sink as you exhale. And try to do that with control to keep your hips square because they will tend to turn out to the left side. So when you inhale, lift your chest up and exhale. Let your hip go a bit more. Observe what happened to you when you inhale and exhale. Because to me, I can feel when I inhale, my lower belly and the front of the hip stretching very much. For one more breath. You may feel a bit tired on your arms because you have to hold the pose with your arms, and then you can push through your arms strongly, very strong, and slowly walk your block back. Let's step your front foot back into table pose, hands down to the floor. Inhale, cow pose. Exhale, cat pose. Inhale, cow pose again. From cow, tuck your toes and go to downward facing dog. So that's how we put our heels on the floor in down dog. You need long hamstring to do that. Let's first bring your sitting bone up. Keep your sitting bone here, and you do that by making your legs really strong and maintain a tiny arc in your lower back. And then from here, don't change anything in your hip. Start pulling in your heel end, pushing your heel toward the floor, which means you may not be on the floor, but you're pressing your heels down to the floor that way. And slowly, when the backside of your leg is long enough, you'll be able to put your heel on the floor without changing your spine position in down dog. If your heel's already on the floor, let's lift your toes off the floor and stay here. So when I do this, I feel very strong in the front of my thigh and very stretchy in the back side of my whole leg, all the way from my calf through my hamstring. Actually, I feel it more in the calf. Okay, and then let's bend your knees slightly. Find the blocks with you. We're going to do down dog split. So hold the block. Maybe you can hold the lower side, but I suggest we use high side first. Walk the blocks a bit closer so that you can stand on your feet. Raise your left leg up and put it on the wall. So at first you can start low. You can put your toes here and bend your front knee slightly and turning your front knee out. Let's start with square hip first, and feel between the difference between square hip and flip hip. And then slowly flip your hip. And you can see that you can bring your leg up higher, bring your legs apart from each other, and maybe more of a stretch in the standing leg. So whenever you have a chance, move your leg up toward the wall more and more. But look at your standing knee, don't let it collapse in. Try to turn it out. Whew. It's really hard for me today to do these poses. But now I feel very much stretchy in the thick part of the hamstring on the right side. And then let's bend your knee again and step your left foot forward to the front of the mat. Maybe walk the block back up there into high lunge pose. As you inhale, stand up straight in high lunge, inhale. Holding your hand into your hip, move your foot further and further away from each other. Slowly stretch on your front knee. Pyramid pose in a wider base and hands down to the block. Put the blocks to the front of your mat. Lift your whole front foot up and bring only the heel down to the floor. Point your toes toward your face. You can still bend your front knee slightly here so that you can move your spine. Inhale, arc your spine. Exhale, round yourself. Inhale, arc your spine. And exhale, round yourself. Inhale, arc your spine. And after this, you have two options. You can stay here and feel the hamstring and calf stretch. If you feel like you cannot enjoy it at all, you can move in and out of the pose. But keep your toes pointing to your face. And what I feel is that this side is not so much tight as my right side. Probably this leg works less. Think of all the time I bike, and I always start biking with my right leg. It could be the reason why. You can do your own investigation. Ask your leg, why are you so different in both sides? And think of your habits. And that's how you build up body awareness. And that's really awesome. When you do yoga or any sport or any training, you're going to pay attention to tiny details about your body. And don't forget to breathe. Whew. And then I'm going to bring my back knee down to the floor. Bring the foot back a little bit so that I can prepare the block for the half split pose. Let's start with one block. If you only have two blocks, let's use one block to put your heel on and the other block to put your hand on. Let's put the front heel on the block. Maybe push it a bit further away. Sometimes we think the hamstring is so tight, but again, everything is connected. The hamstring is connected to the calf and the glute. Maybe we can stretch them out too to gain the whole flexibility of your body. And that's why we have so many yoga poses. You're going to gain flexibility in many poses and not only split. You don't have to split again and again every day. Other yoga poses will have you unlock the tightness part in your body more. And then you will slowly do split. Let's get out of this pose. Bring your front foot back. And bring your hands down to the floor. Move gently between cat and cow. 4. Then let's inhale, raise your right leg up again in cow pose. And exhale, step your right foot toward your right hand. Bend your back knee and walk your front foot further and further away. Find the block with you. And then hold the block with your right hand. We're going to close your left hip in Anjali Asana. Go deeper and deeper into the pose to find the most stretch that you can still feel relaxed in your left hips. Stay here for a while before you slowly bend your back knee and find your hand to your back heel. Once you can hold your foot, slowly pull your heel closer and closer to your buttock and always closing your left hip in. So don't let yourself be open out to the side. Think of how your shoulders and your belly button all point to the same direction. When you inhale, maybe sink your hip lower, and when you exhale, maybe bring your heel a bit closer to your buttock. So now it's stretching you the whole front thigh. It's called the quad muscle. It's a very big muscle group, and some of them do the hip flexing position and some of them do the knee strengthening position. So now as you are doing opposite position to those, you are stretching this group out very effectively. Always closing your hip in, because if you open your hip out, it will not be a hip extension anymore, and it will not stretch the hip flexor group as well. Stay here for a few breaths. I can feel so much in my leg. And then slowly get out of the pose. Go back into half split. So this muscle group is very thick, you can feel it. And if you aim the stretch right into this thick part, it will be quite safe to stretch it out. The unsafe part to stretch is the end of the muscles, that is where it's connected to the bones. Like for example, the hamstring is connected to your sitting bone. We don't want to stretch that part out. So we try to keep your hips square so that you can aim the stretch into the thickest part of your thighs. Okay, now let's do half split pose. So bring your hip back. This time we're going to prepare 2 blocks. If you don't have 2 blocks, maybe you can put 2 blocks that you're using in front of you and bring your fingertips down to the floor. I'm going to bring the front heel up to the blocks. Okay, maybe fingertips down to the floor, or maybe let's hold the blocks if you have more than 2 blocks at home. And now let's move your heel further and further away from you as you point your toes up. You can still bend your knee slightly. You don't have to lock it at all, because locking your knee may make your spine end up in a rounded position. So bend your knee so that you can arch your spine and pull your sitting bone back. It's much more effective as a hamstring stretch than locking your knee. So inhale, and here my knee is bending slightly. Maybe you can't see it because it's very tiny bend. And exhale, forward bend. Whoa. Inhale, halfway up. And exhale, forward bend. Inhale, halfway up. And after this third round, forward bend, you can stay in the forward bend or you can keep moving. To some people, staying still in a stretch feel like torturing to you. Then you can keep moving in and out of the stretch. Your muscle will still get stretched out slowly. And you can take a break in the tiny moment when you get out of the pose and then get back. So that will be less hard for your body and your mind. Whenever you are, think of bringing your head more and more forward. And don't let your toes pointing out. Keep them pointing in so that you aim the stretch right to the back side of your leg. But at the same time, don't let your knee collapsing in. Turn your knee out very slightly. This feels so good because I've trained my body to love the feeling of stretch. If you feel like torturing, slowly get out of the stretch and get back in. Close your eyes, breathe very slowly, and tell yourself, this is great, this is relaxing, because I'm releasing tension. I'm releasing stress out of the leg. And then slowly get out of the pose. Bring your foot back into table pose. Some small cat and cow. Before we go to downward facing dog. So start in the cow pose, maintain the arc in your low back, go to down dog. Maybe this time you don't need to block anymore, walk your hands back slowly and bring your right leg up to the wall. Bend your right knee, bring your right foot up to the wall. Well, I can be so much higher than the previous time I do this. So let's walk your hands closer to your foot. Look at your front knee, standing knee. You can bend it slightly and still opening it out. And at first you can try the hip square, so closing your right hip in. And when I do that now, I can feel the stretch into the front of the hip. Or you can open your hip out and raise your foot up really high and feel the big stretch in the hamstring of the standing leg. So you're standing with your hands very much, actually. Try to bring your belly lower. It's fine if you're bending both knees, doesn't matter at all. But make sure you feel the stretch. And to me, I feel it as much in my calf as in my hamstring. And then slowly get out of the pose. Walk the hands back into a down dog. Bring your knees down to the floor again. And this time inhale, cow pose. Lift your left leg up. And exhale, step your left foot forward. Hanumanasana pose. Let's hold the block with you on the on the left side. Raise yourself up. Prepare the pose so that it's deeper than the previous time you do this. Walk your feet away from each other. Bend your front knee more. Sink your hip lower and closing your right hip in. Again, it's the kneecap and the thigh bone that is facing the floor and not the inside of your knee. So in here, I still feel the stretch, but not exactly where I want to stretch. If I close my hip in to a square position, it's right in the muscle group that I want to stretch. And now let's bend your back knee and slowly reach your hand to find your foot. Once you can find the foot, close your hip in, because often we tend to turn out to hold the foot. It's easier, but once you hold the foot, closing your hip in. If you cannot find your foot, use a strap to support you, but always close your right hip in. And now it's stretching me so much in the thick muscle in the front thigh. It's a quad muscle group. Quad means 4 in Latin, and this group has 4 muscles. Some of them do the job of flexing the hip, and some of them do the job of strengthening the knee. So now that you are doing opposite action, you're stretching it out very effectively. If you feel shaking in stretching, it's very normal. You can slowly get a little bit out of it, or just calm down and breathe through it. If you're shaking, know that I'm shaking too, and other people too. Aim the stretch into the biggest muscle in the front of your thigh. And then slowly get out of the pose. Bring your back knee down to the floor. And then slowly move your hip back. Maybe you can move forward and backward a little bit. And then we're going to prepare your blocks to half split with the 2 blocks. Again, if you don't have more than 2 blocks, use the 2 blocks to underneath your heel and hold your fingertips on the floor. Let's lift your front leg up and put it on the 2 blocks. Let's say I don't have 2 blocks, I can bring my fingertips to the floor. If you feel this is very hard, you can keep your front knee bent and then slowly straighten it by pulling your hip back and back. Flex your toes up and make sure that your toes, your shin bone are facing up to the sky and not pointing out. Because then we cannot aim the hamstring anymore. So we want the hamstring to be facing the ground so that we stretch it out. If you bend your knee slightly, you turn your knee out gently. Don't let your foot be collapsed in. Inhale into a halfway up and exhale in forward bend for 3 rounds. Every round you imagine you go a little bit deeper into the pose. The progress can be really tiny. And then after 3 rounds, you have 2 options. You can continue moving or you can stay still with your face as close to your ankle as you can. So now your belly is sticking to your thighs. And it's absolutely fine if you're still bending your knee. Maybe you feel like you're bending your knee ridiculously much, but that's fine. The most important thing is to feel the stretch running all the way from your heel through your buttock. So you're stretching all the muscles from your calf to your hamstring and the glute. Very big muscles that always tight in most of us. And for this side, I feel the calf stretching more than the hamstring, slightly more. They're all very stretchy now. I can feel them. And I really like it because I've trained my mind to like this position. Even when it's shaking, because I understand that it's releasing the stretch, releasing the stress inside the leg. And I will feel really good after this. So we're going to target to stretch the thickest part of the muscles. And then I can slowly get out of this. Find any way to bring your leg back. And you can do some slide cat and cow. So we often hear of this hamstring torn. Sounds scary. It actually happened many times. It's actually happened in the ends of the hamstring, which means where it's connected to the sitting bone. It's torn there. So if you aim the stretch in the thicker part of the hamstring, it will be safer too and more effective. Go through some cat and cow. Calm down. And then you're going to go to down dog with your low back tilting up like a cow pose. This time you can hold block again with the lower side of the block, or you can just walk your hand a bit closer and stand with your legs on the floor. Left leg up to the wall. So much easier this time for me. What about you? You can still bend both of your knees, that's fine. But the leg on the floor, turn your knee out slightly. And first let's try with the square hip. So turning your left hip in and down. Actually, I don't feel so much of a stretch in the left side. Maybe because my right side is stronger, tighter, and therefore feel more in the stretch. And then let's try flipping your hip. Opening your hip out and raise your foot higher and higher. Maybe you can walk your hand a bit closer too. And here in this standing split, you are having a lot of your weight on the hands. To me, when I turn my hip out in this pose, I feel like there's a cramp in the front and outside my thigh. So maybe I'm going to keep my hips square. Not so ideal for this leg. You discover your body, investigate your body, the same thing, and see which one is the best for you to do. Then do it equally on both sides. We don't want to get more asymmetrical. And then slowly get out of the pose. Feels so good. And now as your body is warm, let's try to do the Anjali Asana with your hand, trying to reach to your foot. So to do that, let's use the wall space. I'm going to support pillows and have my blocks around. Start in a kind of table pose with your hand into the block. Let's put your right knee into the pillow and put your right foot on the wall. Make sure that you feel like your whole shin bone is facing the wall. So you don't have to put your knee so close to the wall, but make sure your shin bone the whole top of your foot is facing the wall, so that your hip will be square. If only your big toe is on the wall, then it's already a bit turning out, and we don't want that. And then let's bring your left leg forward into an Hanumanasana. Hold the block first. So to some people, holding here is already a big challenge. But what you do is you always closing your right hip in. It's very common to be like this here. You can see my chest and my belly button are pointing to the side and not to the front. So I'm closing my hip in. And then if you feel like this is quite nice, you can keep pressing your hip down toward the floor, always closing your right hip in. Maybe you will be quite strong in your back that you can raise your hands up and touch the floor, the wall behind you. Okay, awesome. Hugging your elbows into your head. Maybe walk your hand down and down. Maybe you can find your foot somewhere. Oh, I found my foot here. So cool. But it's a huge stretch in the front of my body, and always closing your right hip in. Think of your belly button is facing right the front of your mat. When you want to get out of the pose, just hold back to the block. Whoo. And then let's slowly drag your leg out of the wall. Whoo. Into a kind of forward bend. You don't have to take the forward bend too seriously. You can just bend your knees and hang around gently. Then we're going to do that leg again in a pose. That is a variation of Hanumanasana. Okay, so you might think, wow, I can't even do Hanumanasana. How can I do a variation? Well, again, you don't have to do the full of that pose. So let's bring your right knee again into the pillow. Put your right knee here, put your right foot on the wall. Again, you don't have to put your knee strictly in the wall. You can make a space even bigger, so it's easier for you to have your foot on the wall. Keep your hips square, step your left foot forward. Bring your block back. Okay, and this time we're going to start walking your foot forward. So imagine Hanumanasana with your back knee bent. That'll be what we want to try. But of course, you don't have to do the full pose. What you do is closing your hip in all the time. And take a few breaths here. So this pose may make you feel a stretch in your knee, but make sure that it's not flipping your knee out. So it's the kneecap that is touching the floor and not the inside of your knee. Maybe you can even go further, but listen to your body all the time and keep your hips strictly square all the time. Maybe you can stop here. That's very big enough for us to try for the first time. Slowly bring your leg back and then bring your back foot down to the floor and forward bend. Try to stretch your leg a little bit this time into Uttanasana pose. You can hold your big toes. You can pull yourself lower and lower. Think of how you want to push your knee back. And then check in with your knee. Maybe give your knee some nice massage using your own hand. And that's fine for your right leg today. Let's try it again with your left leg. Bring your knees down to the floor. We're going to put your left knee into the pillow. Make sure that your shin bone and your foot is facing the wall so that your hip can be strictly square. So that's the only must in doing all these poses. Step your foot forward. Yeah, that's the only must. Other thing can be bent or can be you can be very far away from the floor. It's fine. Keep your hips square all the time so that the stretch will be right in the front of your hip. And now let's be here stably. Walk your blocks back. Maybe you can be here very stably. You can bring your hand one into the wall right behind you, or the other two. Keep your elbows hugging in. Don't point them out like this. And then start walking your hand lower and lower. Maybe you can find your foot somewhere. Oh, here it is. Yes, that's awesome. Don't let go of your head. It's scary. You cannot get out of the pose. And think of how you're pushing the world away from you, just like we did in wheel pose, and always hugging your elbows in. And there's a huge stretch coming in the front of your body, always closing your left hip in. Don't turn your belly to the left side. If you point any point on your belly, that point should be point facing the front of the room. And to get out of the pose, slowly get out. Then before we try the other side, let's bring your knee out slowly of the wall, forward bend. Let's bend your knees so that your back can be lengthened. Bend your knees a lot. Stick your belly to your thigh, hold into your elbows, and swing around gently. You can bend and straighten each knee like a walking down dog. You can move your hip from side to side. And then let's slowly get out of the pose. So let's try the variation of Anjali Asana pose. Bring both knees down to the floor first. Put your left knee into the pillow station. I suggest you use thick and stable pillow, because the soft one, when you press your knee down, it may be too thin and painful for your knee. Make sure your hip is square, always closing your left hip in. Don't at all costs open it out. Step your right foot forward. And now sink your hip lower and lower. Walk your hand back so you can be a bit up straight, but it's fine if you're still leaning forward a little bit. And then start walking your foot forward and forward. Maybe to some extent you can even have only your heel on the floor. Then you can move your heel away and away and away from you. Maybe you stay here. This is enough for me. I don't want to go further. I want to close my left hip in so that it's always square and I stretch into the muscle that I want to stretch. So you stay here for a few breaths. If you decide to go further, make sure you can still have good control of your hip. Take a few breaths and really feel how the thigh bone of the back leg is pressing down to the floor and not at all the inside of your knee. Ooh, I'm shaking like crazy. So if you do the same, we're on the same boat. To get out of the pose, use your arm strength, press into the block, move the foot back, and the other leg out of the wall. I can feel my right knee hold it less than my left knee. My left knee can take it more. Forward bend, maybe you can hold your big toes. Try to straighten your knee a little bit. And maybe move gently, bend and straighten, bend and straighten. Okay. And eventually we're going to stand up and one last pose. Oversplit before we are done. Don't be scared. We will have full control of what's going on. Let's fold your mat so that these block, especially if you have styrofoam block, because they slide easily on the floor. If they don't slide easily, well then it's fine. I think they slide easily. If they don't slide easily, you can support a piece of cloth under them so that they slide. But let's try. So I'm going to build up a station for my Hanumanasana, and these pillows will be supporting my back knee. These blocks too. I'm going to put my right knee into the pillow station, and my left heel will be on the two blocks. Yeah, you can try with one block if you feel like two is too much for you. Now stay here and imagine. Oversplit is when your hip is on the floor. That's called an oversplit because it's split bigger than a split. But that's not our goal. Our goal is to keep your hips square all the time and discover the stretch that this gives you. Is it any different to a normal split? So let's start moving the blocks away. It's work perfectly on the floor and closing your right hip in. Two action, moving the block away, lowering yourself to lower yourself and closing your hip in. So this is my oversplit for today. I feel like there's no space between my leg and the floor, so it feels like it's stretched more actually, and the heel feel very good. It's not pressing on the hard floor. Always closing the hip in. That's hard because my hip always tend to turn out. But I try to close the hip in all the time. And stay here for a few breaths. Actually, it feels really nice here, and it's stretching me a lot in the front of my back thigh. Remember that muscle, the psoas, that connect between your spine and inside through your hip bone, and it connect inside your thigh bone. So I'm stretching that muscle. It's the main hip flexor. It's very big, and it's very hard to stretch. To stretch it, we need to keep your hips square. Whew. And then to get out of this pose, you can use your arm strength. Find any way to move your legs back. Forward bend a little bit. Bend your knees slightly. Swing around gently. And then try with the other side. So prepare your blocks again. This time, left knee in the pillow pile. Right foot on the 2 block, or maybe on 1 block. You can use your own hand to put it there. Okay. Once you're here, first thing we do, close your hip in. Don't let your body turn to the left side. And then start pushing the block away as you always keep your left hip closing in. Think of how you want to press exactly the thigh bone down to the floor and not the inside of your back thigh. Close your hip. Always keep your hip square. This is important. This side I'm shaking very much because my right leg is much stronger and tighter than my left leg. I will just stay here. But if you feel like you can go a bit further, then you can do that. But if you go far to some extent that you lose the control of keeping your hips square, then don't do so. Come back. Make sure you can still keep your hips square all the time. This feels good because there's no space between the leg and the floor. I feel like I have more freedom in the stretch in this pose. And because my legs are still working, I have good control of the hip. You don't have to go as low as me. You can be lower or you can be higher. You can bend your knee more. But the important thing is you find the stretch in the biggest part of your legs. That is right at the back side of your front leg and right at the front side of your back hip. And then let's get out of the pose. So slowly press your arms through and go back. Relax in your forward bend. Slowly stand up as you inhale and exhale. Now let's lay down to the mat and get the Savasana that you deserve. I feel like my legs are so much longer in muscles, and all the tightness from the legs workout, it disappeared actually. Let's lay down to the floor. And at first, do bend your knees and hug your legs toward your chest. You can pat them like a baby, love them. You can touch all the big muscles that we have been talking about and deal with, like the calf. Oh, now it's so soft, right? But how can it be so tight when we stretch it out? And the hamstring. Touch your quads. Give them some massage, maybe. Hug them. If you want to do a happy baby by bringing your arms inside your legs, holding the ankles or the outside of your feet. So in happy baby, press your chest down, press your shoulders down, and your hips down, and your knees down too. So your back feels really big on the floor. You can turn slightly from side to side. And then let's straighten your right leg on the floor, bending your left knee. Turn yourself to the right side. Use your right hand to keep your left knee on the floor. Open your left arm out for a twist. Then come back to the center and change side. So keep your left leg straight, bend your right knee, and use your left hand to keep your right knee down to the floor on your left side as you're turning to the right side for the twist. Relax your body. Feel how your body gets softer after all the stretch that you have been doing. And then let's slowly come back and strengthening your legs on the floor in Savasana. Move your heels away from your hips and move your shoulder away from your hip too. Open your feet freely to the side as you're turning your palms up. Relax in your shoulders. Your arms has been working today too to support you in the split. Allow them to relax now. And feel how all the big muscles in our lower body, they're now melting on the floor. Appreciate them very much because they help you stand up straight. They help us stand up straight from a monkey, from an animal, to be a standing straight human. If you look at an animal that's crawling around with 4 legs, they will not have their lower body, which means your back legs, so much bigger than their upper body, which means their front legs. But in human, we really have much bigger legs than arms, because we need all those strength to stand up straight. So make your legs strong and don't forget to stretch them out so that they're both strong and flexible, so that you can maintain a good standing posture, which is now generally degrading because of the modern society habit of sitting. Stay here and take as much long Savasana as you want. I highly recommend a hot shower before the stretch. And I'm going to get out of this pose and finish the class. So I hope that now that you can enjoy the stretch, like you don't think about the stretch as being tortured or painful anymore. And you can fully control how you stretch. You can target the muscles you want to stretch. So that's really awesome. And by knowing that, you can do any yoga class or any training with full body awareness, understanding of what you want to do. Thank you very much and namaste.